Welcome to the GM show. We've got myself, Brian Green, and Henry Metcalf. We're really excited about this podcast, and obviously, this is our first episode. We thought a lot about who we wanted to invite on our first episode, and Henry and myself have a great relationship with an awesome guy in Cache Valley, Alex Bearnson. And maybe Henry, if you don't mind, just at a high level, would you mind just introducing Alex? And maybe I can add some other things that were awesome takeaways from the episode and why we think you should listen. So I don't know, Henry, is there any, maybe you just introduce our listeners to Alex?
Yeah, for sure. Alex is the absolute man. Everybody's going to enjoy listening to his story and what he's been through ultimately to get to where he's at, whether that's different business ventures that he's been through historically in his life and how he ultimately ended up landing on real estate development. Alex kills it on land acquisition and development, doing really large scale master plan communities up here in Cache Valley, Utah, multi-use type communities, very focused on creating lasting, impactful residential developments, and working with cities to get that done. Alex is an awesome father of 6 kids too. So anybody listening that's got kids running around in the background, he could relate to you. And so I think that's what makes talking with him so much fun. And he gets after it and he executes at a really high level in everything he does. So couldn't be more excited to have him on for our first person.
Cool. And I appreciate that. And I would just add, um, this this podcast, he got really emotional. He talks about a really dark time in his life and some business ventures that didn't go the way that he planned. And we learn about what got him through that and how he's been able to be successful. And so, Henry and I's MO in this podcast is really try to create an environment where people get real and raw. And life is way bigger than real estate. And so this is just a great first episode. And we're super stoked for you to be able to listen about how you can be successful, but also get through some challenging times in life. So we hope you enjoy this, and we hope you subscribe and comment, and we appreciate your support. So thank you so much.
Without further ado, here's Alex. Here's the man.
We just want to thank you for the opportunity to chat with us, man. This is our first episode, and we wanted to get you on, dude. Both of us really look up to you, and you've been an awesome friend of ours. So I
Dude, I
think,
feel the same about you guys.
yeah,
Heck, I wouldn't
man.
be sitting where I am sitting right now without freaking Alex the man
That
introducing
is
me.
not true.
100%, a hundred
That's
percent true.
Yeah, man. So I think, Alex, obviously you and I have built a really good relationship over the years, and you're now living in the same community as Henry. I think in our preparation, I just want to start out by like in LinkedIn, dude, it says you're here to change the world. And it just with your background, I don't even know where to start. Like where you've grown up, you're obviously really successful in the real estate space. You do run ultra marathons. You got into the recycling space, which we can talk about. But like when you put that as your headline on LinkedIn, like, do you mind sharing like what's top of mind for you right now, and how are you trying to change the world, whether it's in your family or in your community or in your professional life?
So that's the LinkedIn headline is actually pretty funny because I haven't changed it ever since the time I was in the recycling business too. That was kind of like one of our taglines is like, you recycle, we change the world. And so like I've always just had, I feel like I've always had a really big vision. Like I do, like in college, I went to USU. Let's go. And,
Yeah.
and, like my marketing thesis was on Tesla. And this was in like 2000, dude, I don't even know. It's 2013. I'm old. And and I saw like Elon Musk's vision, and at the same time I was in the recycling world, And I was just like, there's so much more like that we can do. And I just saw what he did with Tesla and like his overall vision, like with superchargers and everything that's like come to fruition actually, which is crazy. So as funny as that was, and not in any political way, because he is a political figure at some point now, or in some ways now, but he like kind of became a hero. And I just was like, dude, I need to dream really big. Like you should. And we could, what we were doing in the recycling business and what I'm doing now, I feel like I'm building communities and shaping communities, which will shape future families and future communities, how we all interact with real estate development. Like, I love that. So that here to change the world is like carried on, I feel like, with vision and impact and just what I want to do with my life.
Uh,
That's sweet. I mean, like from the get-go, right? Recycling, it's all a form of real estate, right? Like it's a real estate play as much as it is you're doing a service-oriented business, and that one just happens to be a little bit more service-oriented. How'd you get started in that? Because growing up, I don't think you were probably, I'm going to get in the recycling business, right? Like what did that look
No.
like?
Dude, I wanted to be like a businessman. Like, I was like gonna be like MBA, like wanted to be like suit and tie. And I met this guy when I was going to school, like I think it was probably my junior year, and I was actually introduced. It was a client of my dad's, is who it was, and he's like, "Hey, this guy's selling trash to China. He's like, he's crushing it." And I'm like, "Dude, I don't want to do that. Like, that's lame. Like, who wants to do in the recycling and garbage business? There's no money, and it's not glamorous. Like, no one wants to be the trash guy, which is kind of what we were. We were buying and selling trash essentially, right? So I meet with this guy, and I just I was actually going to the U at the time. So we lived in Salt Lake for like a couple semesters and went to the U, and that was a super good experience. But I was knocking doors down there, and what we would do is we would buy like cardboard or plastic materials, like often that you see like bailed behind like Walmart or at Icon Health and Fitness, big manufacturing facilities. So I finally I made one sell. I bought a truckload of cardboard from a recycling yard. I made like $300. I was like, this is cool, but I've been knocking doors for 2 months, you know? And then I finally made a sell. I bought a bunch of acrylic, like chevron signs. And the deal was with this guy is I was an independent contractor, but I'd split half the loads, half the net profits after we paid for shipping and everything else. So we bought these acrylic signs and we sold them to a Chinese company in LA that was shipping them to China. And I got a check for like $3,000 was my cut. And I was like, let's go. And it was like the guy was doing only about 500 in sales, 500,000 in sales when I first joined him. And by like year two, after joining him, we were doing like 3 million, and the margins were just rad. Like the margins were huge. And so it was a great business. But that's kind of how I got started, is while I was going to school. And then I met this guy. And then the beautiful thing is I was able to apply like all of my school business classes into formulating a new business plan for our business and vertically integrating that business. And so it was actually a beautiful time. But
and, and so you're saying like so you met this guy through your dad, and then you were knocking doors for 2 months, selling. Like you were selling like cardboard to like manufacturing, or you were knocking companies, right? And then
yeah,
sending the recycled cardboard that had been brought from China, and you were shipping it back to China at what they would buy it at a discount rate, and then they could ultimately you're just back and forth.
I'm just a broker. Like, so, and if you want to, it's like if I wanted to sound fancy, like if I was trying to impress Henry the first time I met him, you know, I'd say I'm a commodities broker or something. But
There we go.
dude, we're just brokering garbage. Like, we're literally like, hey, we buy for $50 from customer or manufacturer, whoever that is. We pay $800 in trucking. and we sell it for $120 to a buyer out of LA, and it's ultimately going to go to China or wherever else. And we just do that on repeat. And so we built that into like I had like Cliff Bar. We were working with like Nike distribution centers to get rid of all their plastics and cardboard. Um, Pacific Recycling and Steel, just these massive companies, and we'd come and provide solutions for them, but we were ultimately buying the material from them and just reselling it. And then it goes to China and ends up in the manufacturing process somewhere.
So you do that while you're in school, right? You kind of get that experience. It starts, you do it for how long, you transition out of it, kind of walk us through like what was that whole process? What was the decision to get out of being the garbage man and into what you're doing now, which is more on the real estate development side?
So the garbage man was like a glorious time, actually. It was beautiful being the garbage man. So I enjoyed it. So from like 2011 to about 2018 is when I got out, 2019. And what happened is really we had built the company or the brokerage up to like 26 different states we were moving material out of, about 5-6 million in sales. And again, it doesn't sound like a high volume, but the margins are just amazing. And the business is great. Like we can operate out of anywhere. And part of in school, what I did is I created like basically a new business model and created a pro forma with that based on numbers in Cache Valley and the landfill and all that other jazz. But we were essentially sending a ton of mixed material or recyclables to California, and they were charging so much money in labor to process it. And then it was being resold again. And it's like, why are we doing this? We have this I-15 corridor. We were shipping like 200 loads a month down, just passing Cache Valley. So I'm like, let's vertically integrate. Like, let's bring in a bunch of the recyclables here to be sorted. And this was in like 2016. We started building the facility to do that. And there was two sides of that business. The other was construction and demolition waste. And it was like a bulletproof plan. Like everything was good. The markets were good. We were moving material great. Our margins were awesome. On the construction and demolition waste side of the business, it was a no-brainer because they were shutting down the landfill here in Logan and Cache County. So we had like this guaranteed stream of income. Anyway, I'm getting in the weeds a little bit,
This is awesome.
but basically what happened is we're 6 months into building, and there's no contracts in this business, especially here in the valley, because no one owns the landfill or the waste. Excuse me, no one owns the waste going to the landfill, and so there's no competitors, especially if the landfill shuts down. So we kind of had this thing by the jugular. Like we knew they were going to shut down. We start building, and about 6 months in, they announced that they're going to keep it open. So like half of our revenue, which was like so solid, which the bankers like saw the whole business plan. They're like, this is genius. Everyone's on board, right? Halfway through or 6 months into this, we have pylons in the air. They announced like, hey, we're going to keep it open for like 6 more years. So this is the county and city. So there's half our revenue there that would go to them because they're going to keep their rates really low. So we did a study and tried to convince them and the county to charge what it actually costs, $53 a ton, and so that we could at least compete on the same level. Because I'm like, let's compete. Like, I'm happy to compete, but we can't compete against a government subsidized entity. Like, it's impossible. So we lost that battle, and we were fine because it's like we had so much material and so much margin in processing the materials that were going to China, the plastics, the cardboard, the mixed waste. And then all of a sudden, the Chinese president decided to come up with an EPA, so like an environmental protection agency, which, believe it or not, they didn't have one. So,
Just
and
crazy.
it's bonkers, dude. It's bonkers when you look at it. Like the stuff that was going on in Chinese manufacturing is actually like really, there needed to be a change. Like it was bad. So what was happening is we were shipping the recyclables over there. They're being processed, the cardboard. the plastic bottles going into polyester, which is going into clothing, whatever else, and it's supplementing these virgin materials or raw goods that are going into the manufacturing process. But what's happening is there's like contamination, 5 to 10% of millions of tons. So, dude, they're just hucking it in the river. They're burying it out back. Like, it's no good, like what was going on in that world. And so it needed to stop. But the problem is it's literally the destination of all of the world's recyclables because it's the manufacturing hub of the world, right? So they literally one day just shut it off. Like, we're only accepting like the cleanest material. So we had like containers on boats of like hundreds of thousands of dollars in material, millions in material. It was massive. We're trying to go into like Vietnam, India with the product. Like, we have nowhere to go. Supposedly they were dumping a bunch of stuff off in the ocean, container loads of stuff. It was a wild time because China had shut the doors and all these boats are on the water returning to China full of these recyclable materials. And so now I'm here with the plant. We built this big manufacturing 58,000 square foot facility to process this stuff. I lose one side of the business and then now I lose the other. The market just falls out. So we double down. We go in harder. Like, we got to get, like, I'm all in. I'm the guy that burns the boats. Like, just, if I'm in, baby, I'm in. And dude, I had some partners that were not in. Like, that's just the reality. And I don't want to speak negatively at all. It's just that was the case. And it led to essentially division. And I'm confident we could have figured it out if we stuck together as partners. But everyone's got to be willing, right? Like, everybody's got to be in. And that wasn't the case. And so that all kind of fell apart. The brokerage continued. I'm no longer an owner of that. And we parted ways. And then the plant dissolved. Like, I call it the plant. It's this recycling facility. We shut that down in 2018. And then that's how I got into real estate. So, quick rundown. Sorry for the long journey there,
No,
but
it's great, man. It's a transition. I'm sure that transition was hard, right? Like, impact on
okay.
something that you built from what you said, 2011 to 2018. That's 7 years of your life, your hard work, tears, sweat, right? Like, what was that? How was that transition for you? Well, I mean, it must have been pretty hard seeing that go down and try to figure out, oh, hey, what's next?
Dude, when you create a vision for yourself in like your future life, right? It's like that rug was ripped out from underneath me, and you've got to like your foundation, everything almost of what you thought and who you were just disappears in a short period of time. So that's hard, I think. Like, you got to go. I'm looking back saying this. At the time I didn't understand or see it this way, but it's like you've got to re-identify and create a new vision for yourself. You have to. And it was dark times. And that's, Brian knows, we've talked, that's where I kind of got into the ultra running. I'm not a runner. Like, I play football. I played football in high school. Like, and I started running, and that like helped me through that so much because it was such a hard transition to literally just kind of recreate myself with real estate and basically just throw all that away, which I don't view it that way. It was a Harvard education I got. It was just really expensive.
Yeah. Alex, I'm curious, like, for our listeners, that experience, like, what's one thing that you probably learned the most out of that experience that has enabled you to find success in other avenues and pick yourself back up and get into real estate? Is there like a big learning from all of that that you just carry with you?
Yeah, there's so much, like, there's everything from spiritual learning to business lessons, but I would say like the overreaching thing that I learned is I put so much into that, like every day, just grinding there, 18 hours. And it was, I raised like 12 million bucks in all. And this sounds really funny, but this is how I view that is you need to leverage yourself like so much more. Like, stop being the guy that does all the work, that bleeds and sweats. Like, you don't need to do that. You need to figure out how to leverage yourself better. Because for 7 years, I was grinding and I didn't have to do that. And I learned that with real estate. Like, in fact, the ironic thing out of that, here's an example of real estate play. That building that we built in the recycling deal, it cost us 2.3 million at the time to build. It was sold later for 4.7 million. So like that's like I got nothing out of the business. I almost lost everything. But we leveraged and financed that building and it got us a couple million bucks in equity. And so it sounds funny, but if I'm looking at from like a very objective standpoint, it's like leverage yourself to the highest extent and figure out what that means. Like how can you best leverage yourself and position yourself to receive and create the most value and also receive as much as you possibly can. Anyway,
No, I mean, I think that's the cool point. Like, leverage is a term we use so much. Like, it's in our everyday vocabulary in the real estate industry, generally talking about debt, right? Because it's just part of every project that we do. But flipping it on its head and thinking about personal leverage, I think it's like a super important avenue to pursue because you just get way more out of it. That's awesome.
yeah. Well, it just I had this mentality of like you got to sacrifice, and then that's the other like almost spiritual side of it is it's like look, it's not that's not what is most important. Like I had this dream, like we had 5 facilities I was going to build. They're all going to cash flow $1 million. Like the numbers were real. It was real, and it was all I was focused on, and I missed some like vital years of my kids, like when they were really young. And no way. That's why I love real estate. It's like I'm not gonna miss that because it's not worth it. So that's a huge lesson for me too. Like I'll never grind and be that guy that's 18 hours a day because I can never get that time back.
Yeah. And I appreciate you sharing that, Alex. I'm curious, like, it sounds like, and you mentioned, like, it was a dark time between transitioning out of trash to or cycles to real estate. Like, who introduced you to the idea of running long distance? And do you mind sharing with our listeners some of the races you've done and maybe how that's propelled you to get out of the darkness? Do you mind sharing
Yeah.
some of that?
Yeah. So I'll tell you, I was listening. This is really funny, actually. I was listening to a Joe Rogan podcast with Courtney Dauwalter,
Hmm.
but you got to understand like the context of where I was listening. I was listening to it alone in my office at the facility after we just let 50 employees go. It's literally me and my accountant. I locked myself in my office, just like I had to be there to wind down some of the stuff at the facility. It was the loneliest time. And it was literally like dark. Like it was a dark time. So I'm listening to this podcast and she's talking about this race called the Moab 240. And I'm like, and she's talking about like seeing a leopard in a hammock and like just how crazy it is and like this pain cave and suffering and like, and I'm like, dude, wait, she just ran 240 miles. Like that's impossible. And so I listened to this thing, like I just like honed in, it just caught me. Sorry.
Good man.
This is awesome, man. This is raw.
So, and like I said, it was, I made a post about this, which is funny. I should delete this post probably. But it's like, look, my life insurance policy was worth enough to cover all my debt. And it was like, man, yeah, I was better off dead, right? And that's the point I was at. And so I'm listening to this. I go home that night and I just go up behind my house. I just start running. And dude, it was like talking to God again, you know? So anyway, sorry. But it was just magic for me. And I was like, you know what? After I ran, I think that night, I logged on and I figured out that Moab 240 race. Like, there's no qualification. So I'm like, let's go. I just signed up, paid the fee. I didn't have the money. I put it on a credit card and paid the fee, and I signed up for that Moab race. So that's how it started. First, and I just got into running, just became like therapy. And then being outdoors, like running on the trails and in the mountains, it just was magic for me. It saved me, man. So
Going from not running at all, 0 miles, maybe your suicides that you had to do in football practice in high school,
yeah.
to I think for everybody listening, like the Moab 240, you can't really emphasize enough how of like no joke run that is. This isn't going running your marathon down the street, right? Like walk us through how brutal that race is. And then, like, was that your first race that you ran as you took up running?
So I ran a race called like the Speed Goat before. That was the first ultra I did that was 32 miles. So that's the longest I'd run. And then I signed up for Moab the first year, and um, I only got like 48 miles, and I had a medical deal we can't talk about here on the podcast. No, I had a testicular torsion. And so they hauled me out of there, actually. I signed up the next year and finished it. But yeah, it's brutal. It's like you go from like 15 degrees to like 95 degrees. There's no cover in a lot of the areas. You're praying for water, man. But it's so cool. I mean, there's people out there, like everyone's there helping each other. It's not this atmosphere like where it's I'm gonna stomp on you to win. It's like, no, we're all working together to get to that finish line. But the Moab 240 is magic. Like, I could talk about it for hours.
Um, it's really impressive. Like I don't know if we can emphasize enough how awesome that is. Congratulations on accomplishing that. Um, Walk us through maybe from that experience to getting into trail running, what and also like managing your time to be able to be present with your family, like where from 2018, 19 to today, like what have you been most proud about as just a husband and father? And what are some projects or things in real estate that have just enabled you to provide for your family and find happiness and get back on the saddle? Do you mind kind of talking us through that?
Yeah. I mean, since then, like as a family, we've grown a ton. Our kids, we have 6 kids. So like our kids are all in a good spot right now. Like,
Best kids in the world too.
oh, you
No, they're all
Henry, so are yours. Henry's kids are so cute. They're awesome.
And Brian's kids. We just got lots of kids here that are great.
Dude, all these, yeah, all together, they're They would be a wild crew, I think. But
Yeah.
yeah, so everyone's in a good spot. Cammie's in a great spot as well. Like my wife with her career, and she's like advancing and doing things on her own, which is exciting for her. Um, and then yeah, we have some developments we're working on that are awesome on that side of thing. Like things as a father, like I don't my my thing right now is like I try to beat it every game. I try to be like I go home a lot of times at 4 o'clock. Like I'm not gonna try to say I'm grinding till 8. I don't want to. Like I want to be home. I want to be more involved. So that's changed a ton over the since 2018. And real estate has like provided that allowance, like for me to go do those things and to be more present. So like I'm super grateful for that. Um, and what's evolved is just we've done some projects. What I've mainly done is like partnership with landowners, but we have a couple big projects that we're working on that are partnerships with landowners and that are big developments. And so that's evolved, and it's mainly just like big communities that I'm working on. I'm still I'm always hunting for like small deals and residential land deals, commercial land deals, but my big focus is like the master plan communities. So
Yeah, walk us through that because, I mean, for everybody listening, Alex has probably two of the bigger developments in all of Cache Valley, Utah right now that he's working on. You get into the game in 2018, 2019, you're a realtor as well, right? And
yep.
so you're doing single family homes and then building up into these large master plan communities. I think one of the things that you're awesome at is overcoming these hurdles. And it sounds like in your life you've overcome a lot of hurdles too, whether that's a dark place or different challenges, right? You've got these two huge projects in Cache Valley that it's not just, hey, we're going to show up to the city and be like, hey, yeah, stamp of approval, here we go, right? These big master plan communities, you got to get a lot of people on board, working with city council, working with planning commission, and that's really kind of like the visionary side of Alex is you make the magic happen there. And so, can you walk us through kind of strategically how do you go about that to kind of get these things approved? What are like best tips for people that are wanting to get into that space in terms of how can I go about getting deals approved, getting it to the point where we can actually make something happen?
So I would say like first and foremost, like you got to build a relationship with the cities, right? Like I see a lot of developers go in and oftentimes there's not really a relationship there, and it's kind of like a one-sided deal. And I'm not saying, I mean, we all do this, it's human nature, right? But like the magic that we've been able to create with cities has just been in relationships. Like they know that we genuinely care because we do care about the community. We want to build a good product and we want it to be beneficial for their community, not a burden, right? Not an eyesore either. And so those relationships are huge. They're everything. And it's allowed us to work with cities to create new zoning and new ordinances on a level that like I never thought was possible. And then it allows us in turn to create better communities within that. So
Can you walk us through how you've been able to build those relationships? Um, and is it a, I'm guessing you look at it more of like an ultra marathon where it's just like really, really, it's a long-term play, but like how, are you taking people to like strategically or like how are you building these? Are you going to their office? Are you taking them to lunch? Are you taking them golfing or what are you doing to like humanize yourself to where you are more than just a guy trying to develop and make a buck?
yeah, you know what's fun? I need to learn how to golf. you, I'm counting on you.
Yes, there we go.
I'm counting on you both to help
You
me
can
do
learn
that
with
because I'm
me,
a
man.
horrible golfer. But that's like I'm not much of a schmoozer, and I don't want to call it a schmoo. Like taking people to lunch and all, it's great. I love doing that. Like I genuinely want to when I'm going to lunch with people, I'm learning, or
Mm-hmm.
we're like, or I'm collaborating.
Mm-hmm.
So like that sounds super selfish, but it's like if I have a meeting or a lunch meeting, oftentimes it's like with other like a land planner at the county or and another landowner, and we're like spitballing like what's good for the community.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the type of stuff I try to do. Um, the other thing is like I try to create a real vision. Like that's number one for everything for me. So whenever I go into a project, it's like let's create a vision. Let's get everyone on board. And then I oftentimes go sit down with a council member. I'll sit down with the mayor. I'll bring them to the site of the development, and we might go to lunch. But I'll be like, hey, what's your vision? Like, what's the community's vision like? And I'm being genuine. And then and then I explain this is our vision. This is what we need in order to make this happen. So, like, just being real and having those conversations instead of just like showing up with, like, hey, this is our plan. This is the unit count that we have to get. It's just more collaboration.
Mm. A lot of it you hear like sometimes building in public versus building in private, right? And I think the to the detriment a lot of time of the public, unless you're crazy informed and getting on every council agenda, real estate development is largely a building in private space. But it sounds like trying to turn that around and make it more of a building in public and getting feedback from the community serves you well. Is that kind of something that you follow?
It is. And if you're looking for like quick returns, get in, get out, go and title, and probably turn and sell, that's not me. Like, I'm in it for the long game. Because I'm like, if we're going to go help create an ordinance and build a community here, it's like, we're going to exist here. Like, it's a part of us, you know? So, yeah, I'm all about that, Henry.
Yeah. No, it's fun. I love being able to look through a post every now and then on your Instagram or something, and you're like, hey, here's our big master plan community, even to the extent of we don't know what the heck to name this, right? Like, what would the public want it to be named? Because then even if it's something as small as that, they feel like they're involved and they feel like they actually had an impact on what's being created in their community. And I think it goes a long way.
It's huge. One good example of like working together with, I'll share this, it's short, but we had a relationship with basically it's the Utah Public Trails. It's the state of Utah's org for trails essentially. And it was created and they threw a bunch of funding at it, especially to fund like Bonneville shoreline trails. But what they were doing is they only allowed grant money for cities. We knew about it, and the Bonneville shoreline goes through one of our big projects. So we'd worked with a girl named Carly Lanch she was actually here in Cache Valley, and then she went down to the state to work for this org down there. And she made us aware of these grants. And it was like, well, look, how do we get a hold of this grant money? We want the city wants the shoreline trail. We want it. To us, it's an amenity in our development community, right? Like we want trails. It's part of our whole concept up there. So we approached the city, and the former mayor and I had a relationship as well, and he was connected on to Carly Lanch at the state of Utah as well. And essentially, what happened is we we proposed to the city to work alongside them and build this trail system up there. And we utilized the grant money to build the trails. And we could build twice the length of trails that a city could if they bid it. So we dedicated the land, worked with the city to get the grant money, built a ton of trail up there. And for us, it's an amenity and we love it. Like we wanted it, we were going to do it anyway. For the city, it's an amenity for them and their residents. They love it. So those types of things and deals they provide so much value on both sides. So
It's awesome. Yeah, I've been up there and ran on them. It's really cool. what you guys are doing up there, and the Bonneville shoreline is a great place to trail run and work out. I want to be cognizant of time, Alex and Henry. I don't know if you have any questions, but I think for our listeners, like the thought of like coming out of high school or college and acquiring land, working with cities to zone it and entitle it, and then do the horizontal and do the vertical and have this vision, like at least for me, because I've never done that, it feels almost unattainable. And so, for our listeners that might be interested in this space, what would you coach them on, or what do you think they should do, or how should they approach that if they want to do that in this, state of Utah or anywhere really?
So I would say, approach a landowner first off, but like it is daunting. The whole thing is daunting. Number one, Brian, I think you got to have a mentor. Like you got to have someone teaching you, and whoever that is, find them. But there's also so much information out there that I would just say put your head down and figure it out. Like you don't need a ton of money. You don't need a bunch of investors to get started in real estate. Like you can start so many ways creatively. And I just say just do your research and figure it out and don't stop until you do.
It's awesome. Well, Henry, I don't know if you have anything. I've got a couple thoughts to close, but do you have any? Thanks, Alex, by the way. Henry, do you have anything else you want to
Yeah,
ask?
thank you
Yeah,
guys.
no, kind of just building on that. I think that being a visionary, a lot of times it's long term project, long term thought, right? How do you balance that with saying, all right, Alex, what's something that you could get done this week that would make you feel like it was a damn good week, right? Like,
Yeah.
what would make you feel like just looking at your week on a week to week basis? How can you break down being a visionary with what can I get done this week that I'm just gonna be like, I'm proud of myself for getting that done?
That's a hard one because sometimes I get lost in that. Like, it's like, what am I doing? What's my focus? But I'll tell you the beauty with like the bigger developments in the long term is there's always one churning. So, like, a good week for me is like analyzing a bunch of other or new deals. I love that. Like, that like gets me going. And I'm taking on like one every 3 months. Like it's you got to burn through a lot of deals to look to really figure out which ones you want. But so I know I'm making progress if I'm burning through a lot of deals and just looking at a lot of deals. But the beautiful thing with like holding long term in some of these land developments is you're continually selling lots and they're trickling in. And so like cash flow's trickling in all the time. So it's like you're filling it constantly. It's nice. But I don't know that I answered your question very well, Henry.
No, I mean, I think it's good. I think that's part of what the industry is today, right? We came out of a boom from 2010 to COVID, and then COVID had its own implications, and now we're in a weird market where everything's kind of in limbo. And
Yep.
like for context, like yeah, we're looking at 300 deals to get one done, you know? And so you have to almost find joy in looking at deals and then killing deals too, because every deal killed, you're closer to finding the one that works at the end of the day.
Yeah. 100%.
No, I love that.
Awesome. Well, Alex, dude, Henry and I, in starting this podcast, we probably could have interviewed a lot of people for our first, but it's cool hearing your story, man. Like you're here to change the world, and I hope you know how much you've changed us. I mean,
Oh,
for
same to
me,
you guys, really.
I mean, you've been a great friend, dude, and I mean, you paced me in the bear and everything else you've done. I just want to say thank
Crush
you.
the bear.
And and you've brought Henry to our org, which he's been so valuable. So this has been great, man. Thank you for sharing some of your, I would say, your learnings and experiences, and I hope that this can help a lot of people, man. So thank you so
Yeah.
much, and
Thank you both.
yeah.
You're the man, Alex.
Hey, You too. Thank you guys.
Yeah. Have a great day, man.
You too. We'll chat soon.
All
See ya.
right. See you.